Hi, my name is Alexandra Grevens Morris, and this is my final assignment and case study for Business 6333 with Dr. Zhang. In this case study, the first two observed issues regarded professional attire and misunderstood meanings of customs. The first impression is a lasting one, which is why business attire should be professional. A dark-colored suit with a button-down solid-color shirt and nice leather shoes are a good way to make a first impression. Had the Americans discussed culturally appropriate exchanges through a translator or a person who functioned as a go-between before their arrival, the banquet could have been held at a reasonable place for dinner and not been misconstrued as indulging the Americans for a better deal in the negotiation. To be cognizant of the image they portrayed to the Chinese business people, the Americans should have worn their business suits and put their jackets on before getting off the plane. Having international customs awareness requires knowing that the Chinese have different customs, such as bowing, offering and accepting business cards with both hands, and speaking significantly less when compared to Americans. Being aware of how high-context collectivist social cues operate among the Chinese allows American business professionals to develop strong relationships with their potential international partners. The Chinese are a hierarchical society, which suggests that there needed to be an equal number of representatives from equal levels within the American company to respectfully match the Chinese business people. Additionally, in the case study, giving the Chinese business professionals clocks is seen as a symbol of bad luck and seeking to sever the relationship. It would have not taken much research to learn that the clock was an inappropriate gift had the Americans invested little time to learn about the country and the customs. To make a good first impressions, the Americans should have aligned the right team for their meeting by bringing a team such as the CEO, the VP, the CFO, the CIO, and any of the other top directors from the other departments that would have been relative to the negotiation. Additionally, to show intercultural appropriateness, the Americans should have given gifts of high-quality pens or paperweights wrapped in red without a bow. Hofstede noted that there are independent and interdependent cultures who make decisions based on 5 dimensions of social interaction that influence the level of cultural savvy a person will display in different societies. The Americans missed displaying cultural savvy with the Chinese because they did not understand that because the Chinese are a collectivist society, they focus on building relationships before deciding on business agreements. Therefore, investing the time needed to establish this relationship is necessary in progressing negotiations. The Americans should have prepared by increasing their emotional IQ, which would have prevented them from feeling frustrated when the Chinese conversed among themselves. Because the Americans are hyper-focused on pushing the negotiation through, the crosstalk among the Chinese was perceived as disruptive and disrespectful by the Americans. Because the Chinese are a collectivist culture, they have several decision-making bodies that are involved in negotiations. The Americans should have invested the full week in relationship building among the different groups and reserved details about the negotiation for another visit. Additionally, frequently suggesting a recess would have allowed the Chinese to discuss the progress of the negotiation among themselves, which would have shown respect. Understanding social cues in the Chinese culture is vastly different than in American culture, because the Chinese use a high-context communication style. Therefore, the Americans would need to be better prepared to read body language and know when to pause the negotiations for recess to allow the Chinese to ask questions that had they done simple research beforehand. International negotiations take time in China because of the need to build relationships among different parties. The Americans should have budgeted for months of negotiations and not a week if they wanted to be successful. The Americans participated in cultural steamrolling when they began to feel the pressure to get the negotiation completed before they left. When the Americans began asking pointed questions, it was perceived as rude and low class by the Chinese culture and resulted in the Americans not winning the negotiation. The Americans should have planned to build a foundation to negotiate for several months and to have several face-to-face meetings with the Chinese before a deal could be made. Therefore, being patient and quiet is seen as a sign of maturity and respect for the hosts that would have been a better strategy for the negotiators. Adopting intercultural integration in the Americans' negotiating style would have allowed for them to bring the right team, make a good first impression, and interact in a manner that would have impressed the Chinese. Thus, the negotiations could have continued over the long term. In conclusion, even a small investment in learning about the customs and culture of the country that a business person is planning to visit provides significant gains in the results that are achieved in negotiations. Minimizing cultural faux pas and identifying potential differences reduces the risk of insulting the host country and shows that the business person is open and prepared to make professional negotiations. The case study shows that what is familiar in one country is not the same in others, and there is not a lingua franca that translates effectively due to multiple behavioral and social rules that govern how a culture interacts among themselves and with other cultures. Therefore, it is everyone's responsibility to learn and develop their personal intercultural business communication skills to facilitate positive interactions abroad. Thank you.